François Hollande, Olli Rehn and Herman Van Rompuy. Just some of the European leaders who have declared that the worst of the Eurozone financial crisis is over. But is it? And even if it is, what does that mean for the finances of Europe's governments? Here to tell us is Moritz Kramer, Head of European Sovereign Analysis at Standard & Poor's. He joins us from Frankfurt. Moritz, well then, is the cycle of ratings downgrades and negative outlooks over?
Indeed, the 2012 saw a number of important initiatives that could be very constructive in overcoming the crisis, namely the ECB's outright monetary transactions and the ESM and the greater flexibility of the policy tools it can deploy. However, now at the beginning of 2013, one of the key risks that we'll be watching is indeed a misplaced sense of complacency that might creep in and might lead to some backtracking on some of the policy initiatives that we have seen that remain untested till today.
Where do you see that risk of misplaced complacency to be the greatest?
Well, I'll give you an example. We had in June last year a summit where the ESM was authorized to directly capitalize banks in the periphery. Everyone was thinking about Spain, of course, when that was announced. Now, a little later, when the market started to relax after the OMT announcement of President Draghi, what you did see was a trilateral announcement from the finance ministers of Germany, Finland and Netherlands saying, not so fast. This is actually not meant to cover legacy problems, but only going forward, so not relevant for the resolution of this crisis. The last word on this is not spoken yet. But I think it shows a pattern that the moment the immediate pressure from the market goes away, the risks rise, that the policy or the focus on the agenda to resolve the crisis is waning.
OK, now yesterday European Central Bank Chief Mario Draghi spoke of the positive contagion going through markets. From a ratings perspective, does positive contagion lead to ratings and outlook upgrade happening quicker than they were on the downside?
Well, as I said, I think the main planks for containing and then resolving the crisis are in place. But this is a long-term process. This is not going to happen in a few quarters or so. We still have ahead of us a long period of very low growth, high unemployment in some countries, and low or falling living standard compared to historical aspirations. This raises political and social challenges that may make it harder actually to pursue the policy and implement all the measures that have been announced and put into place in principle. So I think the implementation risk is really what we'll be watching. If we see that there's a disciplined approach to policy making and the social cohesion and the social contract holds up on the periphery in particular, we think that there is a decent chance that the bottom may be nearer than people would have thought 6 months ago.
OK, I just want to go into a few country-specific questions. Let's start with France. Many people say it's the next shoe, possibly the last shoe, waiting to drop. Do you share that view?
Well, look, we lowered the rating of France about almost exactly a year ago to AA+, which is still a very high rating, which signals that we think that France has a lot of flexibility, has a lot of resources to deal with the problems. I think what we're seeing now is, for the first time in many years, sort of a growing recognition among the policy elite as well, that some of the issues surrounding competitiveness are actually something that France has to worry about. So far, the measures that we have seen are only sort of a first step, and what we will have to watch, I would think, going forward, is whether these initial announcements will be followed up by a full-fledged program to correct these imbalances that are creeping up in terms of competitiveness, etc. But the outlook remains negative on France, so we think that the risks are stacked to the downside and that policy inaction may actually, over the longer term, lead to weaker creditworthiness and weaker public finances. OK, and
Spain, of course, very much in focus, although the pressure on Spain has eased. Does your rating on Spain depend on whether Madrid makes a formal request for aid, or is the untapped OMT enough to prevent, to put a floor under its ratings?
Well, look, Jimmy, I mean, if we had a few months ago and Spain was paying sort of 7% for its bonds and they didn't apply for a program with the Troika, I think it's less likely that they would do it now that the yield is around 5%. But if they did, so if the sort of risk aversion were to come back with a vengeance, and if Spain were to actually request a program, we would expect it to be granted, and we would not expect that this is a negative factor for the rating of the kingdom, because it does two things. It, on the one hand, it provides a safety net in terms of affordable funding for the sovereign, and secondly, it creates a policy anchor through the commitments made to the Troika, which may make it easier for the government in Madrid to actually pursue all those unpopular measures.
OK, Ireland, very, very quickly if you can. Can Ireland regain investment grade status before it exits the Troika programme?
Well, I'm very happy to announce that actually Ireland is an investment grade rating with Standard & Poor's. We have a BBB+ rating, which is sort of 3 notches in investment grade. So we have never been as downbeat as the market has been on Ireland. We think that the challenges are huge, but we also acknowledge that the flexibility of society and of markets in Ireland is probably more pronounced than in other countries on the periphery. So the outlook remains negative with us. So we think that the risks are still to the downside. A lot of it emanating from the banking sector, which is still challenged very severely in Ireland. But we still have it comfortably in investment grade, and we would expect it to remain so throughout the year. OK, and finally, in a word, if you can, yes or no, will the UK lose its AAA rating? Maybe. It has a negative outlook. So we signal with that there's at least a 1 in 3 chance that the rating might go down this year or next. OK, Moritz, thank you very much. That was S&P's Head of European Sovereign Analysis, Moritz Kramer from Frankfurt. I'm Jamie McGeever. This is Reuters.